Hey everybody, my name is Paul Esdin Jr., aka Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to my YouTube channel, youtube.com/BoyGreen25 for New York Jets content all day, every day. And let me throw this in. The Boy Green merch, baby. It's here, link down below. Cups, shirts, whatever you want. Support the channel, support the brand. Feel free. I don't know. Why not? And by the way, we're here for a very special occasion. It's training camp. Football is back in the air. And we've been doing this every year for a few years. And that is my boy, my man, Ethan Greenberg, New York Jets team reporter for the team. Let's bring him in. That is Ethan Greenberg here on the show. What's up, Ethan?
Hey, Paul. How's it going?
Oh, I'm excited. I'm elated, man. And you guys are, of course, doing amazing work over there. We saw the Flight 2022, Sweet Caroline Have Mercy. That was nice. You got a new member of the team, Caroline Hendershot. Give a shout out to her and EA. And you got the full band back together for camp, man. How does it feel?
It feels great. I mean, this is grind time, right? And we're right about here. And this is where it all begins in almost August. And I guess it's July as we're recording. Yeah. We're basically in August, which basically means we're in 2023. But we're ready to rock and roll.
All right. Well, with that being said, I got to throw it up on the big screen. The other big news was some alternate helmets being thrown into the mix. Let's go to NewYorkJets.com where you guys could see all this. Let's throw this up on the big board here. Oh, yeah, baby. Look at that. That's looking nice. The new alternate helmets for the New York Jets. And they're looking sharp. Ethan, you guys just dropped these last week. You're going to get them 3 times this season. Give us a deets, man. What do you think of these?
How do you not love them, right? I mean, I think that when the new uniforms came out, I think that a lot of fans gravitated towards the stealth black uniform. And now to add a new helmet to it, I mean, it completes the look to me. Obviously, I thought that the helmet that they've been wearing, or the standard green helmet, it looks great, but this really adds a different level of flair, I guess you could say, to the look, and I'm ready to see it live.
Absolutely, and so am I. And Ethan, you know, I was excited for it. I think it looks sharp, and I think the full stealth black look, which again 3 times this season. So guys, make sure you're going to be ready for that. A lot of people were like, "Oh man, are the throwbacks coming back?" I heard Mekhi Becton on Twitter going, "Where's New York Titans?" Which again, I love those, and also just in general, that Kelly green that was there for like the mid '80s or like '97 somewhere there. People were hoping, and I saw a little nugget. Now, tell me if I'm reading too far into this, but I took the old gander at the press release, and the quote said the Jets will continue to be active with updates to their uniforms, and several teams have already announced classic uniforms and helmets for the 2023 season. Could something be on the horizon, Ethan? Can you confirm or deny the little nugget there in the press release?
I am so far removed from any uniform decision that I couldn't even give you a good answer. So, but I will say that when you look at, the quote is interesting because think about what the Jets did last year for the Colts game.
Right.
They wore black pants, which was different. So I wonder if maybe something like that, it could be in the cards for 2022. And obviously you do see the trend of the stealth black helmet in 2022. And, we'll see what happens, but I'm so far removed from any of it. I'm just here for the football, Paul.
Yeah.
Whatever the uniform is, I'm ready to rock and roll.
Well, let's get to the football, and so training camp has not got underway yet. As of us recording this, as players are reporting today, we had rookies last week, veterans reporting today, and through the rest of the week before we get to practice there and after. But I have to ask you from off-season training activities, voluntary workouts, mandatory minicamp before we have this nice 4 to 6 week long break for these players. Ethan, is there a player that stood out to you in some sense that either impressed you enough where you went, okay, I'm going to circle that on the roster sheet as we head into training camp? Who is that player or players that kind of tickled your fancy?
It's a great question because I think there's so many different avenues that you can go. I think for me, I'm gonna give you the broad answer and then go to the narrow answer. So the broad answer for me is like everyone has their own individual storyline, and I'm curious to see just the difference in OTAs versus training camp. Just to use as an example, Lawrence Kager had an impressive spring, but what's going to happen in the summer? In my experience with the team over the past 6 seasons, there have been players who have flashed in the spring who have not made that transition to the summer and in training camp. I'm not saying Lawrence Kager is that guy this year, but I'm just saying that you have to temper your expectations in the spring. So he's somebody that obviously I think I have my eye on because he played well in the spring. But again, it's a shorts and a t-shirt. So what's going to happen when you put the pads on, especially for someone changing positions? Now, like I said, everyone has their own storyline, and like the bigger storylines, obviously, like how's Carl Lawson going to look coming back from his Achilles injury? When is he going to come back to full health? Same thing with Mekhi Becton. Obviously, the Jets placed a number of players on the physically unable to perform list. So what are they going to look like, right? Who's going to win the left tackle competition? There are a lot of questions there, but I kind of want to go one level further than that. And just because I think a lot of the storylines will be covered, right? Somebody that I'm like to see how he performs in the spring is Michael Carter II, because I feel like when you talk about the Jets secondary, they have a lot of additions with Sauce Gardner, DJ Reed, Bryce Hall really came on strong last year. Brandon Eccles, the same thing. But Michael Carter II did a very good job at the nickel spot. What's he going to look like with a year under his belt, knowing the system better than he did a year ago, where he doesn't have to think as much, he just has to react more? So I'm curious to see how he looks in the summer, because in the spring, you can't really do a whole lot of physical contact as pads come on. Obviously, that takes care of itself. So I'm interested to see how he performs in training camp. And so that was the first guy that came to mind for me. Offensively, obviously, you have to lean towards the tackles, but
naturally.
I'd like to see. I'm curious what Elijah Vera Tucker is going to look like at right guard. Obviously, he has experience playing it at USC. I think he's one of the Jets' best young players. The Jets have a really good group of young players, and he had a very good year last year at left guard. What's he going to look like at right guard? I think he'll look just fine, but what's that going to look like? How long will it take the offensive line to gel? So I'm doing this to buy myself time here. The obvious answer for all of it is Zach Wilson.
Of course.
When the bullets are flying. But let's see what Denzel Mims brings in the summer, right? He's another guy who had an impressive spring. Mike LaFleur, Robert Saleh both talked very highly of Denzel. But again, what's going to happen when you put the pads on? And let's see what happens, because Denzel Mims has the physical capabilities. He's got great size and length. He has tremendous speed, which I think is something that people forget. He ran in the 4.38s at the combine coming out of Baylor. So that's somebody that, to me, what's he going to look like in his third year in the summer, second year of the system, in pads? And I'm excited to see what he has to offer after a strong spring.
And with that being said, Ethan, one of the things you also can't tell during the spring in particular is the trench play, because they're just not smacking each other, because it's, especially in the new CBA world, it is very light, and we're not going to really see that till training camp, which leads me to the Carl Lawson piece of the equation. Ethan, I need you to take us back, because it felt like in the moment, and it could be the fish story, right? That I keep telling it to the next person, like, I caught a 1 foot bass the other day. I caught a 12-foot dragon. Oh, whoa, okay, that kind of exploded. On Carl Lawson, in the moment, it felt like it was the second coming of Lawrence Taylor. Last year, when we were going through training camp, we're like, whoa, this is the best pass rusher I've ever seen. And then he gets injured, and then we just kind of have a year to stew on what could have been for the year. And now he's coming back, obviously, off of the ruptured Achilles. Take us there, Ethan. You were there. How good was Carl Lawson in that moment? And again, the anticipation that obviously built up for what he could still do, obviously, in a Jets uniform.
I just want to preface this by saying I do not know what Carl Lawson looked like his prior training camps.
Right, yes, in Cincinnati,
But he was the Jets' best player in training camp last year. And I don't want to say there wasn't a close second, but somebody doesn't really come to mind after that. So, I'm not saying that they didn't have good training camp, because the Jets did have a good training camp. Carl Lawson was, first of all, he's physically extremely impressive, and he's cut up to the nth degree, and he was having a very good training camp. And I think what a lot of national media thought was that he was primed for a breakout year in a system that fits him to a T, that's an attack style, go after the quarterback and go after him. And he was showing that he was a good system fit. And then he he gets a season-ending injury in Green Bay. Then now we're here a year later, to your point, and what's he going to look like coming off of a serious injury is a big question for the Jets, because he is still very much a big piece of this defense. And he had a phenomenal training camp up to the point in which he got hurt. And if you're a Jets fan, you have to hope that he resembles that player that they saw last year and not something different after the injury.
And Ethan, we're actually going to have a lot of joint practice opportunities for the Jets this year. I believe a Jets-Giants was confirmed, Jets-Falcons maybe as well, and then there's one more that I'm forgetting that I think also may be in the works. But the point isn't the specific ones, is based off what happened, although Carl Lawson's looks like kind of a freak thing, and as we were talking with Carl Lawson's trainer a couple weeks ago on the channel, that an Achilles can happen in so many different ways that it's tough to even say. Does this change the Jets coaching staff's kind of thought process? Like, man, we just saw what happened in joint practice last year. Maybe we're going to really ride it easy with a couple of guys. Or is it just football? And hey, football injuries can happen. You just have to operate like normal operating procedure. How do you think does that affect them? The stuff that's happened last year? Does it not? Yeah. What do you think?
It definitely affects the fans.
We're like bubble wrap the guy. You know?
Absolutely. That's something that I'm curious to see what Robert Saleh says once training camp opens up and once Carl Lawson is activated off the physically unable to perform list, because it's a balance of getting your players ready for the regular season physically, but also making sure they're not hurt. So, right. And injuries happen every year this time of year across the league. So I'm going to be interested to see how he handles it. I don't want to project how he's going to handle it.
Sure, right.
He meaning Robert Saleh. But yeah, I do think that Robert Saleh is someone that is not afraid to have his players practice at full throttle. So, because they do need to get ready for the regular season. And once the regular season comes, obviously, no pun intended, it is all gas, no brake. So there's no holding your players back once that time comes around. So it is a weird balance, and it is something that is definitely going to be on the front of many people's minds, I think, especially fans, because Carl Lawson was a big, if not the biggest free agent addition. He's yet to play a regular season snap for the Jets. Right. So you want to see him. He's also at a premium position. And after the reports of last year, what was happening in training camp, obviously the excitement was building up to see what he could do in this defense. We still haven't seen it yet. So I think I'm interested to see what happens. I understand why it's a big storyline, and, we'll see. But, it'll be interesting. That's for sure.
No question about it. Again, we're speaking with New York Jets team reporter Ethan Greenberg here on the show. And make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe down below for more awesome New York Jets content. And speaking of awesome New York Jets content, how about NewYorkJets.com? You guys are doing the weekly Q&As happening. There you go. God bless. Or as Quentin Williams say, bless you, thank you. If you want to do that yourself, not sure. But anywho, again, you got Caroline Hendershot, EA, Randy Lange even as well. And you guys are doing all the great build-up to training camp. So again, make sure you check out NewYorkJets.com for the latest. Ethan, let me ask you a two-parter here. What is the most overlooked training camp battle for the New York Jets? And secondly, or maybe it kind of goes together, the most overlooked New York Jets training camp storyline?
When you say battle, do you mean for a starting job?
No, not exactly. Hey, see, that's why they pay you the big bucks over there, Ethan. You can take it where you want. It could be a starting battle, or as we've talked about before, one of the popular ones among the fans, right? Wide receiver 5, in theory, Jeff Smith, Denzel Mims. So you could go deep, you could go surface level. The world is your oyster, my friend.
It's a good question. My mind gravitates to kind of two places.
Okay.
One is, what is the linebackers room going to look like behind CJ Mosley and Quincy Williams? Because the Jets have a lot of players there, a lot of young players as well. Some experienced guys like Marcel Harris. Jamie Sherwood's on the physically unable to perform list. But what are those guys going to look like, and how is that going to shake out? Because that's a big position for the Jets. Obviously, C.J. Mosley coming off a career year, an older player. Quincy Williams seems to be an ascending player, but what else does that room look like? Nasral Dean was predominantly a special teams player last year after he actually started in the season opener against Carolina. Right. But what's he going to look like physically first in year 2 after transitioning from college safety to NFL linebacker? So what's he going to look like physically? Same thing with Jamie Sherwood coming off of another serious injury, another Achilles injury. So that's kind of where my mind goes as the first one. The second one is the depth at tight end and who's the odd man out. Because as it stands, the Jets signed 2 pieces in free agency in C.J. Uzomah and Tyler Conklin. They drafted Jeremy Ruckert in the 3rd round. Then Kenny Yeboah took reps last year as the season went on, and he was a practice squad guy for a majority of the year. Lawrence Kager was impressive in the spring. Trayvon Wesco was the team starting fullback week 1 last year before he got hurt. So there's a lot of moving pieces at tight end. How many will the Jets keep? Who will the Jets elect to try and keep on their practice squad who doesn't make the cut and doesn't make the 53-man roster is a position that I think that I'm going to keep an eye on as well, because the Jets are going to have players this year, Paul, where it feels like, especially in comparison to different years, where it's like that guy can play on a different team and he can make an impact and get picked up. And I think that the Jets are going to have to, unfortunately, like every year you let go of good players, but there are going to be some players who don't make the 53-man roster who I would imagine Joe Douglas and his staff would be crossing their fingers to try to add them back on the practice squad. And who that will be, that's what the next month is to figure out.
Absolutely. And one of those that at least fans are talking about is the defensive line room, because the only sample size we have is Saleh's going into year number 2. So we can only look at year number 1 of what he did last year in terms of, he only kept 5 of this or 4 of these or 1 of these. And then we're trying to look even at the San Francisco days, not that he had roster control as a defensive coordinator, but seeing how many they kept there, because it's obviously you're bringing over similar concepts and principles and things of that nature. What do you think for the defensive line? Because you could make an argument that they could keep 13 of these guys, but you can't really keep that many because you're taking away from the other units. So that's a positioner group in particular that seems like, wow, there's just so much talent there that somebody really good is going to be left off the chopping block naturally because of how this thing is going to pan out.
Yeah, defensive line is definitely one of, if not the position where the numbers are scary. You're like, holy cannoli, like what's going on here? So you start to think of who you have on the inside and who's on the outside. And there will be, assuming everyone is healthy, there's probably going to be a player or 2 that you're probably kind of sad to let go, but it's what the Jets have is a good problem to have.
Right. Yes.
So you start to think about like players on the outside and Carl Lawson, Jermaine Johnson, of course. John Franklin Myers going to play outside and then probably play more inside in passing situations this year than we've seen in the past. Then you start talking about Bryce Huff, Vinny Curry, the Jets signed Jacob Martin. There are a lot of players in that defensive line room who would play for the Jets in the regular season. So who's on the outside looking in come cut day is going to be fascinating to me. And also, just while we're on the defensive line, somebody who I think, no one's really talked about, and I understand why, just because of where he was selected, is Jonathan Marshall. Like, he has a big-time opportunity, it seems, to make some noise on the inside because Lorenzo Fatukasi is obviously no longer here. The inside right now contains Quinnen Williams, Sheldon Rankins, Nathan Shepard, Solomon Thomas, and John Franklin Myers in some situations. Mm-hmm. And Solomon Thomas is I don't know for sure how the Jets will use him, but it feels like he's got that body type where if you need him line up outside, you could. Need him inside, he could. So I think if Jonathan Marshall, remember, he's got rare athletic traits. That's what the Jets really liked about him. And he's another guy who's an attacking upfield defensive tackle. I think he has the opportunity to make some noise, and I'm interested to see what he looks like in year 2 because, and I'm really not trying to compare the two because it is unfair to both of these guys. But if you remember, Foley Fatukasi, his rookie year, did not play a whole lot. I think he appeared in 1 game.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan Marshall appeared in 1 or 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
The next year, Folranzo Fatukasi started making some presence. Obviously, 2 very different players.
Sure.
Foley more of a true run stopper. Jonathan Marshall, not quite the same body type as Fatukasi, but I think for me, it's hard to like not get excited just because I'm curious, right? And here's the thing: there's as equal a chance for Jonathan Marshall to be what I just said, to have make a name for himself and also be off the team. And that's the same case for most of the players on any NFL roster trying to fight for a spot in training camp. So I'm interested to see what he has to offer because I think there's an opportunity there.
And interesting, Jonathan Marshall, former 6-round pick, Foley Fatukasi, former 6-round. I mean, I don't know. I hear what you're saying, Ethan. I hear you. He was the quote-unquote Mr. Irrelevant for the Jets a couple years ago as their last draft pick. We will see if ultimately he ends up being the guy. Since we're on the defensive line, I just have to ask, Quinnen Williams, is this the breakout year? I loved his answer. I think actually it was with Bob Wischusen is where the answer came out, and then it kind of went viral. Like, normally, I don't think players are this aware, for lack of a better word. But when he was asked about, man, how'd you think your season went and what are you hoping to do? He's like, right now, he was super specific. I'm like a top 12, top 15 defensive tackle. I know I can be top 10. I know I got this. I know I got it. It was just an amazing awareness from a player that most players don't seem to have that awareness of where he wants to be, what he thinks he is right now, and how to get there. I just thought that was a brilliant answer and really has just kept him on my mind as a guy where there's all this talent around him, second year of a system. If a breakout was going to happen, it seems like this is the year for it to happen.
I think this is the year where Jets fans were hoping was last year, where you got to see a little more one-on-one matchups with Quinnen Williams, because in the past he's been double teamed a decent amount. So I think that I can't obviously project will it be the breakout year. I do think that fully healthy, this is the best situation for him to encounter one-on-one matchups and try to get after the quarterback. Because if you would imagine a fully healthy Jets defensive line in a passing down situation, probably looks something like Carl Lawson, Quinnen Williams, John Franklin Myers, and Jermaine Johnson, or Jacob Martin, or whomever you want to, Vinny Curry, Bryce Huff. Like, there's a lot of guys on that other spot. I think fans want it to be Jermaine Johnson from the jump. The Jets obviously thought he was a top 8 player in their eyes, so he probably will see the field a decent amount, but you got to give the rookies a little bit of time to acclimate. So with that being said, it is the best situation. And also what the Jets like to do is they like to play a certain amount of plays for their defensive line so they can go 100% for X amount of plays as opposed to 75% for Y amount of plays. And what I mean by that, and as I'm sure you know, that what the Jets will do, they'll play like 2 rotations. So they'll have 4 guys in, they'll rotate the 4 guys out. That way guys are fresh, they're healthy, the big body's thumping in the middle. So I think that it is the best situation for Quinnen Williams to break out since he's been a part of the New York Jets.
Ethan, let's go away from training camp just for a second here. The Jets have been very open that they pursued Tyreek Hill and they were going to try to make that move happen. And they've talked about it a little bit in press conferences about, hey, you know what? We swung for the fences and it didn't hit. But what did that aggression say to you, Ethan, about this upcoming season, about where they believe they are? Because you don't make a move like that unless you think that you can make some noise, in my opinion. I'm kind of projecting out there a little bit. But what did that say to you when they swung for the fences? According to Adam Schefter and some media reports, they were close, but it just didn't happen. But what did the aggression of a move like that say to you?
What it said to me was almost twofold. One is that they will do everything in their power to provide Zach Wilson the proper supporting cast that he needs in order to become a legitimate NFL player. And so he obviously took a turn in the right direction when he returned from the knee injury at the end of last season and took a step forward. And what Jets fans obviously are looking for is a step from that. And so now with the new supporting cast, the 2 tight ends, CJ Uzomah, Tyler Conklin, Elijah Moore in year 2, fully healthy Corey Davis, Garrett Wilson. When you make a move like that, it shows that the Jets are all in on their guy and they want to see what he looks like with a supporting cast. And also, I know Joe Douglas talked about it. The wide receiver position maybe once wasn't viewed as a premium position. That is not the case anymore. It is clearly a premium position in the eyes of Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh because they tried to trade for Tyreek Hill like it's been documented, and instead they take a receiver number 10 overall in Garrett Wilson. So, and also you start to read the tea leaves of what other teams have done. Trade for Devontae Adams, the Las Vegas Raiders did.
Sure.
Amari Cooper to the Browns. There were A.J. Brown to the Eagles for another quarterback situation. So I just feel like that's what that showed. And it also shows that, and this is pretty well documented too, the rookie contract in terms of the quarterback, teams want to capitalize in those situations. To me, it shows that Joe Douglas and his staff and Robert Saleh and his staff are sharing a vision that they want to try to capitalize on that situation after the Jets drafted Zach Wilson number 2 overall last year.
A couple quickies before we get you out of here, Ethan. We haven't talked Zach Wilson yet, so let's get to him. From all the interviews that you and the other fellow members of the Jets 360 team have done with teammates asking him about Zach Wilson, they keep saying he has this palpable swagger, this extra juice that maybe he didn't have last year, and maybe he just didn't want to establish it, right? He's a new guy coming in. He's just trying to learn the way, and now, seemingly, now that he has a feeling for everything, there seems to be this energy and confidence that seems to be infectious to his teammates. Is that something you've sensed as well?
That's something that you can see the confidence in the huddle. It is something that I'm going to keep an eye on in the summer, because I think that's when you'll start to see it, when you start making plays and when the pads come on. It's the dog days of summer. The heat's just scorching the players in the pads.
Yeah.
What's going to happen when temperatures flare? And I think that it is something you can sense. I think you sense it a little in the spring, but obviously, like, the spring ball and OTAs and minicamp is a different beast than training camp is. And so I think that you'll see a little bit of that, and I'm excited to see what it looks like in year 2.
All right, throw on the prediction cap here, Ethan. Who's the preseason star? Every year, it's a guy that we have no idea who's coming, and they just do it. We've had it against the Jets. Victor Cruz. Who the heck is this guy? And what a fine career he ended up having. Who's the guy on the Jets roster? No one's talking about, but has a chance to do something during the preseason. Now, that doesn't guarantee anything. We've seen guys have really good preseason for the Jets and then just get cut. They don't make the team because, hey, it is what it is. But who is a guy that you're like, there's something here. There's something bubbling. I could see it.
That is a great question. It's one that I'd be better equipped to answer in a couple weeks, but
yeah, with some meat, seeing something. I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like most training camp or preseason darlings tend to be wide receivers.
Naturally, yeah.
So with that being said, one guy. This is a real just shot in the dark here. One guy who caught my eye during rookie mini camp was Calvin Jackson, who the Jets signed afterwards. So I'm going to say him because I think he'll have an opportunity to punt return as he did in rookie mini camp, because I would assume that at the point in the game that Calvin Jackson would be playing, Braxton Berrios probably isn't going to be back there punt returning, so he's going to have an opportunity there, I would imagine. I'd imagine, obviously, he'll have an opportunity at wide receiver. Now, also, in the preseason, if you're a guy trying to fight your way onto the 53-man roster, you probably need to have special teams value. So for Calvin Jackson, he's probably not looking at the starting punt return job or kick return job with Braxton Berrios on the team. But if you can offer a little juice on special teams, that could catapult you over somebody who does not. So for me, Calvin Jackson would be a guy to keep an eye on. And I'm trying to think of somebody else to give a little more juice. But that's just one guy that I feel like no one's talking about. You know what? Why not? Right? What do I have to lose here?
Absolutely. We're just shooting wind in the breeze here. But there's one more I do want to ask about because I just haven't heard about him. But he got reportedly a very large guarantee and undrafted free agency. There was DQ Thomas, old Dairy Queen there. What can you tell? The only thing we know is our Bing searches. Okay, who's this guy? Boop, 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 boop. And then we're like, all right, that's it. That's this guy. Let's watch out. Whoever this guy is, the Jets must think pretty highly of him. What can you tell us about this DQ kid?
DQ Thomas, if I'm not mistaken, in minicamp, whatever team he was running with, I believe he had the green dot. So I'm not sure, obviously, what that means for him, but I would imagine that the Jets are impressed with him enough by what you just said, by the fact that they signed him. The Jets did not have a big undrafted free agency class, that they probably like him quite a bit. And if you're wearing the green dot, you probably have a pretty decent understanding of the defense. Now, what that means when you're lining up for preseason games or for practice, I'm not quite sure. That's what training camp is, so we can find out, and so the coaches can find out. So I'm interested to see what he has to offer, because it caught my eye that it looked like he was breaking down the huddle in terms of calling the plays or relaying the plays from Jeff Ulbrich, to his fellow rookies.
Well, Ethan, we could talk for hours, do a Jets podcast, but you already do enough of those. So, Ethan, I want to thank you so much for joining us here. Feel free, if you'd like, on your way out, to give a plug to all the great things you guys are going to be doing. What kind of training camp coverage? I know you guys have done live shows before where it's been either you and Eric up in the booth or switching out where you had someone live on the field doing some great training camp coverage. What do you guys have set up for the fans?
We got some live coverage coming up, that's for sure. Probably going to be twice a week. That's the goal. And then other than that, just keep your eyes peeled, because, something that you might see in training camp, or even, here's what I'll say, stuff that gets captured in training camp, you might not see for a little bit, but we got great content coming your way.
That's a great tease, Ethan. You've been in the business for a couple of years. I enjoy it. Well, Ethan, as always, thank you so much, man. We'll check in with each other down the line. Good luck on this season. If I don't see you before the start of it, I'll be there week 1. Hopefully I'll run into you. But, wow, great stuff as always, Ethan. Thanks for checking in, man.
Paul, always a great time. Thank you.
All right, there he is. Ethan Greenberg, New York Jets team reporter here on the show.